Have you ever, emerged from I don't know, a 3-hour algorithmic scroll? Or maybe you just finished rewatching a show you've already seen at least twice,
Oh, yeah.
and you suddenly realize you don't feel rested at all. In fact, you feel completely hollow. Your body is physically exhausted, you feel emotionally depleted, and yet your mind is strangely restless.
Yeah, it's like an engine just revving endlessly in neutral.
Exactly. It's so weird.
It really is. I mean, it's this profound, kind of unsettling paradox of the modern era. You sit perfectly still on a comfortable piece of furniture for hours,
Yeah,
right? Avoiding all physical labor.
right.
But internally, your nervous system feels completely fractured,
Yeah.
just totally frayed.
Well, welcome to today's deep dive. Now, if you're listening right now, you probably already know that infinite scrolling isn't great for you.
Yeah, we all know that by now.
Right, so we aren't here to, rehash basic screen time guilt or give you some lecture on putting your phone away. You're here because you want to understand the hidden underlying mechanics of your daily life.
The actual wiring behind it.
Exactly. Our mission today is to unpack a whole stack of fascinating analyses on why modern entertainment is secretly draining us, and basically how our biological attempts to simply relax have effectively been hijacked.
Yeah, and to do that, we are synthesizing an incredibly rich landscape of material today. We're drawing from critical essays exploring what sociologists call the content trap.
Oh, that's a great term.
It is, right. And we're also looking at deep neurobiological studies on the modern leisure brain and sociological perspectives on the erosion of presence.
So we're looking at the actual chemistry of why unwinding feels so stressful now.
Yeah.
We'll be diving into the mechanics of the spectator fallacy, and ultimately we want to figure out how to reclaim the actual substance of life.
Which is so needed right now.
It really is. I think, honestly, the most glaring thing jumping out from these analyses is how radically we've redefined what the word entertainment even means.
Oh, completely.
If we look back through human history, the baseline was entirely different, wasn't it?
Yet the historical inversion is just staggering when you look at it chronologically. Because for the vast majority of human existence, entertainment was this distinctly rare thing.
Right.
It was a highly intermittent event, like a seasonal harvest festival.
Or a traveling storyteller coming through the village maybe once a year.
Exactly, or some communal game played on a specific holiday. It functioned as this deliberate punctuation mark in the broader rhythm of survival and daily labor.
It was an event. You actively anticipated it. You had to physically go to it. You share it with your community. And then when it was over, you went back to your normal life.
Right, and now it feels like we've taken that occasional thrilling concert and turned it into the ambient muzak of a supermarket.
Yes.
It just never, ever turns off.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second because I have an analogy. It's like moving from occasionally having a slice of birthday cake to having cake IV dripped into our veins 24/7.
That's a very vivid way to put it.
But it works, right? It stops being a treat and becomes a baseline condition.
Yeah, and that ambient nature is really the crux of the issue here. Entertainment has shifted from being a deliberate, conscious choice to an invisible default.
An invisible default.
Right. We don't wake up and say, I'm going to allocate 2 hours to be entertained today.
Hmm.
We simply fail to choose anything else in those interstitial moments of our day.
So it just fills the vacuum automatically.
Exactly. It has become the permanent water that modern life swims in.
Well, let's examine that default state. Because living inside a perpetual entertainment machine sounds like a literal utopia to a medieval peasant.
Oh, for sure.
But the data clearly shows it's making us miserable. If we're constantly stimulated, why are we so unhappy?
This is where we really have to look at the dopamine economy and how the human brain maintains homeostasis.
Okay.
Modern entertainment is engineered to provide what neurobiologists classify as low friction or cheap dopamine.
Which means chemical rewards that basically bypass the normal requirement for effort.
Zero effort, zero skill, zero risk. Think about the evolutionary purpose of dopamine for a second. It's a neurotransmitter fundamentally designed to motivate us to pursue things vital for survival.
Like foraging for calories or building a secure shelter?
Exactly. Or navigating complex social hierarchies to find a mate. Those activities require immense friction, and they carry a really high risk of failure.
But today, you just tap a piece of glass.
Right. You tap glass and instantly witness a high-budget explosion, a perfectly timed joke, or some highly curated image of beauty.
So the brain is receiving the chemical reward of this highly successful hunt without the body actually leaving the couch.
Precisely. And the brain, it's a highly adaptive organ. When you flood it with an endless daily stream of this cheap dopamine, it attempts to protect itself.
Because it's being catastrophically overstimulated.
Right, so it physically protects itself by biologically downregulating its own dopamine receptors.
Wow.
It essentially raises your neurological baseline.
Mm.
You now require a massive amount of high-velocity stimulation just to feel quote-unquote normal.
And this is what the analysts refer to as a dopamine debt.
Exactly.
Well, if the baseline is artificially inflated by cheap dopamine, then expensive dopamine, like the slow, frustrating process of mastering a craft or learning an instrument.
Or even having a difficult, nuanced conversation with your partner.
Right. That must feel almost impossible to endure.
It does. It doesn't just feel boring either. To a downregulated brain, the slow pace of physical reality can actually register as psychologically painful.
Wait, painful? Really?
Yeah, literally. Reading a dense, complex book becomes an intolerable chore because the brain is screaming for that high-velocity reward rate it's grown used to on a screen.
Okay, I'm kind of stuck on this idea of the algorithm, though.
Okay.
If the tech platforms have all this data, and they objectively know the user feels awful, jittery, and exhausted after a 3-hour scroll, you'd think they would serve up content that genuinely makes us feel calm and happy.
You would think so, yeah.
Right, because if I'm miserable, I'm eventually going to just close the apps, so why double down on the stress?
Well, you would logically think that, but human neurobiology dictates otherwise. The entertainment industrial complex operates on a business model that optimizes strictly for engagement.
Not enjoyment.
Exactly, not enjoyment. And evolutionary biology hardwires humans to pay far closer attention to threats and unresolved tension than to peaceful satisfaction.
Oh, right, because the ancestor who stared blissfully at the beautiful sunset got eaten by the tiger.
Precisely. While the ancestor who hyperfixated on the rustling bush survived to pass on their genes.
So our brains prioritize the rustling bush every single time.
Every single time. So the algorithms optimize for what behavioral psychologists call negative arousal.
Negative arousal.
Yeah, they leverage outrage, suspense, fear of missing out, and manufactured interpersonal conflict to literally trap your attention.
Wow.
You are being locked into a loop of engagement-optimized anxiety. You think you are relaxing after work, but your amygdala is firing as if you were navigating a high-stakes survival scenario.
Which perfectly explains that fractured, jittery exhaustion we talked about at the beginning.
Exactly.
Your body is physically sedentary, but your nervous system has just run a marathon of threat detection.
Yeah, and because the brain is highly stressed by this constant state of negative arousal, we paradoxically turn to the exact same platforms to numb the profound discomfort they just caused.
Oh, that's twisted.
It is. We start replacing real, messy human experiences with sanitized, simulated ones. And this is a phenomenon deeply explored in the literature as the spectator fallacy.
The spectator fallacy, so we get the aesthetic of meaning without the substance of effort.
Exactly.
It's like watching a high-definition drone shot of a massive mountain peak instead of putting on boots, feeling your lungs burn, and actually climbing a hill.
Yes, but it goes much deeper than just substituting nature documentaries for a walk. Entertainment provides profound neurological approximations of the entire human experience.
Approximations.
Right. Following a professional athlete's journey is not the same as playing a sport. Consuming a highly dramatized screen romance is not the same as navigating the vulnerable, terrifying reality of true intimacy.
But the brain is easily tricked. You watch a protagonist overcome incredible odds in a 2-hour film, and your brain dumps all the neurochemicals associated with triumph and heroism.
Right. You feel undeniably heroic as the credits roll.
Even though your physical reality remains entirely unchanged.
You haven't taken a single risk, you haven't faced actual rejection, and your character hasn't grown an inch. We have functionally transitioned into a civilization of watchers.
A civilization of watchers?
Yeah. We systematically outsource the most satisfying, challenging human activities to a professional class of creators and athletes.
While we just pay to passively observe them from a safe distance.
Exactly.
You know, some of the data points here show an average of 4 hours a day spent just watching other people do things.
It's massive.
But I want to push back on the terminology a bit here on behalf of the listener. The texts refer to this as opportunity theft.
Yes.
Isn't it just leisure? I mean, if someone works a grueling 50-hour week, 4 hours of watching someone else build a cabin on video sounds like a well-earned luxury, not a theft.
I get that. But it becomes a massive theft when it displaces the foundational building blocks of your own life.
Okay, how so?
When you spend thousands of hours observing the manufactured lives of highly visible celebrities, You are misdirecting human admiration.
Misdirecting it.
Yes. Historically, communities admired local heroes, local philosophers, or local practitioners of genuine excellence.
Right.
And that localized admiration binds a physical community together. When we direct all our admiration at distant figures who are famous only for being visible, we completely atomize our society.
And while we are isolated in that atomization, we use that very content for behavioral sedation.
Yes.
I really want to talk about the anesthesia effect, like using a podcast in every quiet moment or putting on a familiar, comforting sitcom just to fall asleep.
It's essentially a strategy to manage the quiet anxiety of the present moment.
Right.
It's an avoidance strategy at an industrial scale, and it leads to what clinical psychologists call emotional bypassing. We are literally outsourcing our emotional processing to fiction.
Wow. So, crying at a beautifully manufactured, tragic film scene provides a real emotional release, yes, but its object is entirely fake.
Exactly.
I want to make sure I understand the mechanics of that, though, because isn't feeling empathy for a movie character actually good practice for real life?
It seems like it would be.
Yeah, like doesn't it flex the empathy muscle so we are better prepared for the real world?
Well, the empathy you feel for a fictional character is a real emotion, sure, but it is entirely frictionless.
They're frictionless.
Yeah, a fictional character doesn't require you to compromise, they don't have bad breath, they don't interrupt you when you are speaking,
Right.
and they don't demand a messy, long-term commitment. It is the experience of deep emotion without the heavy burden of consequence or repair.
Okay, so it's like eating a highly detailed photograph of a sandwich instead of making one.
I love that analogy.
The picture might look perfect, right? And it might even trick your stomach into rumbling, but it provides zero nutritional value.
None at all.
And eventually, your jaw muscles atrophy because you've basically forgotten how to actually chew real food.
That is an incredibly apt analogy for what is happening to our neurology. Over time, a psychological diet, heavy in these perfectly paced, perfectly scored, manufactured emotional experiences.
It subtly depletes us.
Yes, it depletes your capacity to handle genuine emotions in your messy, real life. Because real life doesn't feature a swelling string section to cue you on exactly how to feel.
God, wouldn't that be nice sometime?
It really would. But real life is awkward, slow, and narratively incoherent.
So by using these simulated sandwiches to constantly numb ourselves, we meticulously avoid the awkward, slow moments of reality.
Right.
And in doing so, the analyses suggest we have accidentally driven a vital human experience into extinction. We have killed boredom.
We have. We currently treat boredom as a malfunction of the day that must be immediately cured with a screen.
Yeah.
But from a neurological and evolutionary standpoint, boredom is a feature, not a bug in the human operating system.
It is the necessary fallow time.
Exactly. If you think about agricultural soil, it must be left unplanted periodically to rest and regenerate its nutrient profile.
Right.
Boredom is the fertile psychological soil, where the mind, completely deprived of external stimulation, is forced to turn inward.
That is where the brain synthesizes disparate ideas, where you daydream, and where genuine creativity actually sparks.
Exactly.
Without the friction of boredom, we never invent anything new.
But when we constantly buffer against silence, we delete the fallow time. The immense paradox is that this infinite noise generates a profound poverty of experience.
A poverty of experience.
Yeah. Our habit of rapid switching and our diminishing tolerance for delay doesn't just stay confined to the couch.
Right, it leaks out.
It migrates directly into our professional work, our interpersonal relationships, and our overall capacity to sustain patient attention for anything meaningful.
This constant stimulation also fundamentally degrades the stories we tell ourselves, doesn't it?
Oh, massively.
Narrative is essentially humanity's oldest piece of technology. The historical campfire was a crucial mechanism where communities transmitted core values.
And processed collective trauma, like a famine or a war, and figured out how to survive together.
The ancient campfire was a tool for collective illumination.
Yeah, but today the entertainment industrial complex has largely evacuated that vital social function. The campfire has been industrialized into a content pipeline.
A pipeline.
And the stories being pumped through this pipeline are overwhelmingly optimized by algorithmic models for audience retention, not for truth or wisdom. The texts refer to these as story-shaped objects.
Story-shaped objects. But how does the brain differentiate between a genuine narrative and an industrialized story-shaped object? I
Right.
mean, they both have characters, a plot, and conflict. It seems like the brain would process them exactly the same way.
It's a good question. A genuine narrative requires active psychological participation from the listener or viewer.
Active participation.
Yeah. It asks you to sit with ambiguity, to reflect, and it often confronts you with an uncomfortable truth about yourself or the world that you must process.
And the story-shaped object.
An industrialized, story-shaped object simply demands your passive attention. It engineers the pacing to tell you exactly how to feel at every given millisecond.
Oh, wow.
And it resolves the tension just neatly enough, or utilizes a highly calculated cliffhanger solely to ensure you click the button for the next episode.
So one leaves you contemplating the complexity of your own life, and the other just leaves you reaching for the remote.
Exactly.
And because everyone is consuming their own algorithmically tailored stream of these story-shaped objects, it drives massive social atomization.
Massive.
Like a family can be sitting on the exact same sofa, physically inches apart, yet existing in completely separate personalized universes of content.
Yeah, they're physically together, but psychologically entirely alone.
Which brings us back to the core issue of how we engage with media.
Right. When the story's engineered primarily to keep you from clicking away, it inherently loses its ability to challenge you, change you, or provide any real wisdom for the human condition.
Okay, listening to us dissect this, it sounds entirely dystopian.
It can feel that way.
It sounds like we are concluding that all screens are inherently toxic and we should throw our televisions into the nearest river to save our brains.
Right.
But surely unwinding with a great movie on a Friday night after a brutal work week isn't biologically destroying us. We need to ground this and look at the legitimate utility of entertainment.
Absolutely. We need to be clear. The critical literature is very careful not to demonize entertainment itself.
Good.
High-quality art, whether that is a masterpiece film, a sweeping novel, a beautiful symphony, or even a brilliantly designed, narrative-rich video game, represents peak human creative achievement.
Right.
These mediums can genuinely deepen our empathy and articulate complex, nuanced human emotions that we might struggle to express ourselves. True rest and release are legitimate, fundamental human needs.
So it's not the medium itself. And the metaphor from the sources that perfectly crystallizes this is comparing entertainment to salt.
Yes.
Salt is an incredible essential ingredient. It makes the meal of life taste infinitely better, it preserves things, and it brings out the flavor of the other ingredients.
But it is a catastrophic main course.
Right. You cannot survive on a bowl of salt.
No. The danger arises entirely from the placement and the volume. When entertainment shifts from being a deliberate, curated thread in a rich, active life to becoming the central organizing principle of your daily existence.
The salt takes over the meal.
Precisely.
So the neurobiological response actually changes based on intentionality. It's not just the screen itself, it's how we approach it.
Immensely. It is the vast neurochemical gap between actively choosing to watch a masterpiece film with your full, undivided attention on a Saturday evening.
Versus simply collapsing onto the couch and letting an endless feed autoplay while you passively swipe, desperately trying to avoid your own internal monologue.
Exactly. When bounded and highly curated, entertainment enriches the human experience. When it is boundless and acts as the default state, it gradually, quietly replaces life altogether.
Wow. We've mapped out some incredibly deep territory today. We looked at how our baseline shifted from the occasional highly anticipated festival to the inescapable music of the dopamine economy.
Where cheap chemical rewards artificially inflate our neurochemical baseline and make the physical world feel painfully slow.
We examined the underlying mechanics of the spectator fallacy, recognizing exactly how our brains are hijacked by negative arousal.
And how we settle for frictionless, simulated emotional responses rather than putting in the hard effort of real-world engagement.
We've unpacked exactly why boredom is a biological necessity for synthesis, and why we have to guard our fallow time against the industrialized campfire of story-shaped objects.
The ultimate synthesis for you listening is recognizing that your attention is your single most valuable non-renewable resource.
Yeah.
Every minute spent in an involuntary state of passive consumption is an attention tax paid directly to an industry that profits from your distraction. Shifting back from a watcher to a doer is how you reclaim your cognitive function, stabilize your nervous system, and return to reality.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over long after this audio stops playing. Imagine if for just 1 week, every single screen in your life went completely dark, without the constant ambient noise of the spectator life filling every silent gap in your day. What latent talents, what dormant hobbies, or what entirely new parts of your own personality would finally have the quiet space to wake up?